Today, former Democratic Senator Bob Menendez was sentenced to 11 years in prison for levels of corruption that can only be described as cartoonish. So now he's the first public official in American history to be convicted of acting as a foreign agent. And I want to note, he's 71 years old and he just got sentenced to 11 years behind bars. I don't know if he's gonna see a day outside of prison after he reports to serve this 11-year sentence. Now, last year, Menendez was convicted of all charges brought against him, which totaled 16 felony convictions for bribery, extortion, conspiracy, honest services, wire fraud, which I've never heard of, but bad, obstruction of justice, and acting as a foreign agent while holding public office. And we covered this story from the very beginning, but in case you missed our coverage, let me give you the details about what he was tried and convicted for. So the charges revolved around Menendez's relationship with the government of Egypt, as well as three businessmen, Wael Hanna, Jose Uribe, and Fred Davies. So here's former US Attorney Damian Williams explaining more about what Menendez was tried and then later convicted of.
The indictment alleges that Senator Menendez used his power and influence, including his leadership role on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, to benefit the government of Egypt in various ways. Among other actions, Senator Menendez allegedly provided sensitive, non-public US government information to Egyptian officials. We also allege that Senator Menendez improperly pressured a senior official at the US Department of Agriculture to protect a lucrative monopoly that the government of Egypt had awarded to Hanna. A lucrative monopoly that Hanna then used to fund certain bribe payments. The indictment alleges that Senator Menendez used his power and influence to try to disrupt a criminal investigation and prosecution undertaken by the New Jersey Attorney General's office related to an associate and a relative of Uribe. Third, the indictment alleges that Senator Menendez used his power and influence to try to disrupt a federal prosecution of Davies in the District of New Jersey in two ways. First, by seeking to install a United States attorney who he thought could be influenced with respect to Davies. And second, by trying to influence that office to act favorably in Davies' case.
Okay, so that is what he has now been found guilty of doing. And look, when we talk about corruption at cartoonish levels, we're not joking, because get a load of the ludicrous bribes that Menendez received.
Special agents with the FBI executed search warrants on the residence and safe deposit box of Senator Menendez and Nadine Menendez in New Jersey. When they got there, they discovered approximately $500,000 of cash stuffed into envelopes and closets. Some of the cash was stuffed in the senator's jacket pockets. Some of the envelopes of cash contained Davies' fingerprints or Davies' DNA. That's not all. Agents also discovered a lot of gold that was provided by Davies and Hanna. And the FBI, of course, found the Mercedes Benz that Uribe had provided them.
I mean, Menendez and his wife even accepted like luxury vehicles. It's amazing. Now, when the charges were first announced back in 2023, Menendez responded by brazenly weaponizing his identity, but like it's also hilarious that he said this. He said, "Those behind this campaign simply cannot accept that a first-generation Latino American from humble beginnings could rise to be a US senator and serve with honor and distinction." Menendez also pointed to generational trauma as an excuse for his behavior, saying, "For 30 years, I have withdrawn thousands of dollars in cash from my personal savings account for emergencies. And because of the history of my family facing confiscation in Cuba. And who could forget when Menendez alleged that his wife, Nadine Menendez, was the real mastermind of this corruption scheme? Couple goals. The former senator could still appeal his conviction. He did break down multiple times during the sentencing today, And he's now taking a page out of the Trump playbook, saying outside of the courthouse today, quote, President Trump was right. Oh man, he's really hoping for a pardon. This process is political and it's corrupted to the core. I hope President Trump cleans up the cesspool and restores the integrity to the system. Was he treated poorly? Is this all like smoke and mirrors? Is he really just an innocent guy who lived a life of trauma as a result of what happened in Cuba?
I mean, if he wants to say that, in comparison to the corruption that generally happens amongst his colleagues, then yeah, sure, he was treated poorly, because there are people that are getting away with murder right now in terms of corruption in the US government. But the problem for him is that they're doing it legally.
I know.
That's why you deserve to get the book thrown at your ass, Bob Menendez. There are legal pathways to do your, federal government corruption. It's called this, the revolving door. There's just so many ways. Nancy Pelosi and her husband's stock market resume.
Dude,
I mean, come on, these guys are kicking. They're kicking Goldman Sachs's butts every single day. There's so many ways to do this.
Members of Congress, I mean, it's still considered illegal, but they get away with it. Like, they get insider information through their closed door briefings, and then they trade individual stocks. They engage in insider trading, and they become tremendously wealthy. I mean, that's just one of the ways that corruption happens every day among our members of Congress, and there are no consequences for it. We literally have a thing called dark money, okay? Where corporate interests, moneyed interests, legally bribe our politicians, and none of it needs to be disclosed to the American people. Maybe the overall figure or amount gets disclosed, but we don't know who the dark money donors are. Like, the fact that, like, you have to try real hard as a member of Congress to violate like campaign finance laws or corruption related laws, because there are barely any laws to begin with at this point. So there you have it. He gets sentenced 11 years in prison. He immediately pivots to kissing up to Donald Trump, hoping that Donald Trump will pardon him. And who knows, man, Donald Trump does love ass kissers. So there's a possibility, there really is. So we'll see what happens.
Man, I saw the news recently that Eric Adams went down to Mar-a-Lago. First I saw that, and then it was like Justice Department is looking into dropping the charges. It's just amazing what these guys are able to get away with. But yeah, just to get back to it, this guy was receiving cars and gold bars, and it's like the level of grift was so filthy. They had to smack him down for this, because you're drawing too much attention to the operation when you do stuff like this, and so that they got to come down on you. But what made me really the saddest is, his wife is Armenian, man.
No, come on, Was. Come on.
Ruining the brand.
Come on, Was.
Ruining the brand. And
listen, people are alleging that his wife is Armenian, but there's really been no evidence provided to the American people. And so I'm not gonna stand for your defamatory remarks that make the Armenian people look bad. So you better back away from that. Okay, actually, she has an Armenian last name. Very likely she is Armenian. Whatever, it's okay. Listen, every group has the goodies and the baddies.
Got some bad apples.
Yeah.
Got some bad apples. I don't know if you guys had saw this, but Prizewell from the Fugees, he was like colluding with the governments in Southeast Asia, all kinds of nonsense. They hauled his ass into prison, making the Haitians look bad. It happens.
It happens. And look, it's interesting because you have an Armenian woman who married a Cuban man. It's kind of like our household.
Where have I seen that before? Okay.
We're we're upstanding citizens in the Casa Caspez household, but not so much in the Menendez household.
Thanks for watching. If you become a member, you get to watch all this ad-free, except for, of course, this ad. Still, hit the join button below.